to Take It from the Ironwoman. My name is Susanne Mueller, your host and the Ironwoman. This podcast is about empowering yourself and others to make real changes in the world. You will hear from everyday, smart, sophisticated, hip people like you and me. Not everybody has to be an Ironwoman to impress the world. Together, we will learn from the sports and business leaders how you can become a more successful person as an entrepreneur or a leader. It's one step at a time, one day at a time. Take your steps now. Take your big steps now. Join me on this journey to success. Take it from the Ironwoman. We only have special guests, and today we go to Julia. Julia is an artist.
Thank you. I started out actually as a theatrical lighting designer, really for dance, or that's what I came to New York to do. I started doing it in college and had always loved dance. You can't really make a living there. I started working as a stagehand and ended up a union stagehand. In the meanwhile, I had been writing. A writer is what I really was, storyteller. At one point, I've been working on a novel for more years than I want to admit, and getting ready to start the third draft. It was just like so many words, and I needed to take a break. I was looking through one of the New York Times style magazines, the special ones that they come out with, and I'm just paging through and going, oh my God, that picture's amazing. That picture's amazing. Wow, that would make a good collage. That would make a great collage. And it was just sort of like my brain said, I want pictures. No more words. And I started making collages. I made a few decades ago. I don't even remember why, but I was never going to be an artist. My sister's an artist. She's an amazing photographer. And so I started making these collages, and it was just what I needed to do. I started showing some to some people, and they said, well, what are you going to do with them? I don't know. There's a cafe in my neighborhood, Kurokirin, and they always have exhibits of artwork. I'm like, well, what the hell? I went in and asked if they'd be interested. The woman who curates the exhibits had me send her some photos, and she said, we'd love to. Let's see when we can make this happen. And this was in, I think, December of 2019.
A magic date.
But no, in the pandemic. I sheltered with a friend up in Fleischmann's. It was wonderful. Her brother has a house, and she'd always been inviting me, but I could never go because working as a stagehand, either working or waiting for work. She was a choreographer, and I was her lighting designer. She started teaching because she needed to make a living and started painting. It's a very artistic house. So it was a great place to just start doing collages, and I had all this time. That's kind of how it started.
It seems like the pandemic has helped you to become more creative, and it came to you in a way, even though you say you're a writer, but then all of a sudden you take a different turn.
I call my website JBR Stories because all of my collages tell stories. What I say is, each one tells a story. The story you see is the story it's telling. In writing, you have to use so many words. I see what I'm writing. I'm a very visual thinker. In describing, making all the words match what I'm seeing takes a lot of time and a lot of words and a lot of rewriting. And with collages, it's just like, there it is. I don't have to use any words. I just show you. And the other cool part is that in my story, everyone gets to interpret what I've written, but it's all kind of laid out. With the collage, literally, whatever you see, everyone brings different things to life, art, whatever. It's been fascinating hearing some people talk about what they think a collage is about versus what I think it's about. Yeah. But of course, they're not wrong because it's for them.
I like what you say with the looking at things. I see different things than you, and I love the crazy stuff. I love Picasso. People are like, no, he's not a good painter. He obviously is one of the most famous ones. You say everybody interprets it differently. nobody's right or wrong.
Occasionally, I'll explain something to someone. I now have an exhibit up at Beans and Vines, which is a restaurant in Inwood. I've got my work all over the restaurant. Basically, I decorated the restaurant. It's different than an exhibit where you've got a white wall and put everything up, which was fun. And the owner, I was going to show him some pieces, and what is he? It's like, no, just do it. Just do it. There's one piece which is abstract. It's all shades of purple and lavender, which actually were the background in a fashion magazine. There was a shoot, and it was the background against which the models were photographed. And it was just really great colors and the shadows. And so I cut the models out and then pieced all the lavender and purple together. He had a kind of maroonish brownish wall. And so I put it on that. It's not a big piece, 2 feet by 3 feet, something. And it just was a little small. I had a large black frame because in New York, you just walk along and the stuff people throw out. Yeah. So I hung the frame around it, and there's this large space between the frame and the piece. The wall is the mat.
You don't have to buy a mat.
No. I got to do fun things like that. I made one piece specifically for the restaurant because I was playing with maybe putting up a smaller, more, quieter piece. He said, well, maybe put that back there. He says, maybe I'd like something bigger here, something wild. I had a piece of plexiglass. I have all these dried leaves. I have a pineapple plant in my apartment. People cut the top off of the pineapple. Well, I planted it, and now the leaves are 5-6 feet tall. Still haven't grown a pineapple, but who knows? So I had some of those. I had some dried palm leaves. I had foil. I had lids from cans. And so I just put all of this on the plexiglass and then hung it on a brick wall. The brick wall becomes part of the piece. Yeah.
We have so much stuff. I've taken some photography. Actually, I took a class in street photography, and the pandemic hit. We could never go to the streets. And the professor says, just take pictures of what you have in the house. And it's so much fun. A little mermaid, and I added some tomatoes around it. And I was like, I love this. So voila, we have art.
That's one of the things I really love. When I was working in theater, I was also very concerned about recycling and reuse. And a million years ago, I'd say in the late 80s, I ended up doing a number of seminars for a nonprofit theater organization. And I really wanted to do one on recycling in the theater. I was working off Broadway at that time. It's easier to try to get in there and make things happen. So I said I'd do a couple of seminars and we charge for them. And then we'd use that money towards the recycling in the theater. Ended up out of that came a program which was called the Recycling Hotline. Because you can't take all the stuff. People kept saying, oh, well, you should get a warehouse. And you get a warehouse, and then you need a truck. And then people say they're going to take stuff, and they don't. And then eventually you have to clear the warehouse. I said, I'm making phone calls. I would call people because I also wanted to keep track of what was going on. I'm sort of low tech. You want to talk to people. I would get calls from people getting rid of stuff and calls from people who needed stuff and play matchmaker. Mm-hmm. I was already very much in that headspace. I started off with the New York Times style magazine, but then in the recycling baskets in my basement, people get rid of all these magazines. I'm like, yeah, I just take all the magazines and cut things out. And then, like I say, on the street, my God, what you find, frames, backings. I've got a mirror that at some point I'm going to use.
I think it's heaven, the recycling bin in the apartment buildings. So how do you get to know those people in the restaurants, or how do you approach a person and say, take my art?
It's interesting. For Beans and Vines, I started going there before he had this big restaurant. He had a small space. I would go in there and write because I can't really write in my apartment. Being in theater, I was around in the afternoon if I was working at all, even if I was working a show at night. So when it was really quiet, 2 or 3, I just go in there and order a coffee, maybe a bite to eat, and sit and write. As long as I'm not putting anybody out, they were happy to have me. I got to know the owner, just a really sweet man last summer. He was trying to work out something regarding a loan per the pandemic and needed a letter written. And he's from the Dominican Republic, and his English is fine and all. But in terms of just writing a letter, I knew I was a writer, and he said, Julia, could you do this for me? Sure. It was easy, did it, helped him out. And I said, by the way, I'd actually been thinking, do you think maybe I could... There's something called the Uptown Art Stroll. I targeted that, and I said, as part of the Uptown Art Stroll, do you think I could hang some art here? He's like, great. Now it's just going to keep hanging there. The art stroll ends June 30th, but my art will keep going. So that's how that, for Kuro Kirin, I was a customer. I went in, I ordered coffee there. They were a lovely little space, a small business. And again, sometimes I'd just stay and sit and write when it wasn't too crowded. Looking at their art, as I was making more collages, and people were saying, well, what are you going to do with them? Mm-hmm. No harm in asking. Fortunately, the cool thing is that I really like collages. It would be a problem if I didn't. And other people really do too, which is so, it's really cool that I get this positive feedback. She looked at some of the photos and just said, it's really just, it's funny because I never had this goal and focus of a career as an artist. I feel freer to just ask. Though in my writing, I've been sending stories out for millions of years. And I've had a few published in small literary journals. My writing is kind of as quirky and abnormal as my collages are. It doesn't fit neatly into slots, but every once in a while it just appeals to someone. It just like send it out and expect rejection. So even there, I'd say more attachment to my writing, but still it's just about they're going to like it or they're not. It's not personal. When I ask people to read my writing, I tell them the 2 things I don't want to hear is that's nice or it sucks, because neither is helpful. But otherwise, if it's constructive criticism, I've gotten some incredibly useful critiques. And sometimes I have to put things down for a while and then I pick them up. And I'll pick something up and go, that sucks. And it's just, they wouldn't say that. And this happens, and then they just go on and do that. And it's like, where's the reaction? Because I like writing out of what I think happens. And so I have to go back and go, okay, really happens. Everything is made up. It's not factory worked as fiction. I really don't know these people, and I really don't know the situations. It always feels like peeling onion skin, layers of onion skin. And I get down and I think, oh, that's the picture. I see it. Then I go back and go, oh my God, there's more layers of onion skin. No more back. And that's why the novel has taken forever. I could rewrite a 10-page short story. I could take 2 years. So a novel.
It seems to me when I listen to your story, you're telling a story with your story and you're in the story. So it's that story. It's just so beautiful. Also, it seems you're so natural. You go to a coffee place, you establish, and now the listeners need to listen up because some people are like, how do I get my art out? You go to a coffee place, you establish a relationship, you become a regular, you dare to ask. What if they say no? You show them some stuff. Why not? Even if you can show 2 pictures or 2 pieces, I think that's a success. What's next?
What's next? Well, I actually have an exhibit that's going to happen in October. There's another cafe called Buni Cafe. I approached them the same way. They liked my work. They have a couple of locations, one in Inwood on Broadway around 207th, and then a smaller space up on Fort Washington. Well, off of Fort Washington on Pinehurst Avenue, just a little bit out from the cloisters. I approached them and sent some collages, and the woman liked them. And my pieces tend to be small, so she thought the Pinehurst area was better. And then meanwhile, I've picked up the novel again. I had started doing a bunch of rewriting over probably the last year or so. I have to type everything into the computer because I print everything in. I work longhand. Things just go that way better than. I need to get all of these scribbled on pages, all those changes into the computer so I can see where I am. It's called the lutichord. And there actually is an instrument called the lute harpsichord. Originally, it was going to be a harpsichord, and I was doing online Googling to try to learn more about how it worked. I discovered this lute harpsichord, and there's a man in it. It had been designed by Bach, but none remain from his time. But a lute player who wanted to play some pieces of music that really were too complicated for the lute, asked this instrument maker in Hungary, a luthier, literally, if he could build one. I found him online, and he's built a number of lute harpsichords. And I actually went to Hungary, to Budapest, and visited him and saw them. He had a photographer and a translator and a musician there for my visit. I was the guest of honor. And talked, and the musician played for me. I talked about some of the things that I wanted my composer in the novel to play. It's very special to me because of the instrument.
Wow. Can't wait till that comes out. You better hurry. Okay. We need a good summary for next year.
Okay.
Thank you so much. Wonderful.
Thank you.
What a cool conversation. What are you taking away? A lovely person, a story in the story with the story. And what is your story? Take it from the Ironwoman. We have episodes every Monday with great people, inspiring people, people who dare to do something different. Take it from the Ironwoman is also a book, Global Business Coaching with Sports Parallels. Download it, read it, write a review. Thank you for your support. See you next time.